Hello everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you today to talk about the telecom sector and the challenges of data and artificial intelligence. Let me briefly introduce myself, Jean-Luc Prévost, with over 10 years of experience leading our telecom business at Artefact. Today, I'm joined by Armel de la Meslière. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, thank you Jean-Luc. Yes, Armel de la Meslière, Senior Manager responsible for supporting data and AI departments on their projects, as well as client relations and marketing.
Today, the telecom sector is at a turning point. We have several trains arriving at the same time, meaning on one hand, we have telecom operators, especially in Europe and particularly in France, who are starting to benefit from the heavy investments they've made in deploying fiber and mobile networks. On the other hand, we have a market that is highly competitive and offers little room for differentiation. What we need to keep in mind is that telecom operators are data-rich players. What that means is that for more than 20 or 30 years, they've been accumulating data on their customers through their networks, and they've already started to capitalize on this data. Now, the challenge is to go even further with the emergence of technologies such as AI, generative AI, and agents. And so there are a whole host of opportunities for these players to transform themselves thanks to this technology and to put the customer back at the heart of the matter by improving service quality, whether through physical assets, such as the network, but also through the interactions operators have with their customers. Well, on the other hand, there is also the ability to differentiate themselves through other offerings related to connectivity, while still keeping this competitive aspect in mind. So we see three areas where telecom operators can benefit from data and artificial intelligence. First, customer relations. Second, marketing. And third, everything related to the network and interventions. Armel, could you tell us more about the impact that artificial intelligence can have on the field of customer relations?
So, first of all, to provide a bit of context, it's important to know that the telecom industry is one with a lot of customer interactions. That means customers interact a lot via chat, by phone, or in stores. And so it truly is a very significant and substantial challenge for all telecom operators to effectively ensure that these crucial and important customer interactions are as highly personalized and individually tailored as humanly possible in every single instance. So, telecom players have a strategic imperative to address their customers with more personalization and personality. And for that, in fact, AI and GenAI will bring various opportunities. The first opportunity we see is the automation of handling simple requests. We want to avoid having advisors handle all requests and instead have these requests managed by bots. Now, bots already exist. We've already seen some basic bots, fairly standard ones, but they had a low response rate and were very complex to maintain. Now, with GenAI, we can go even further. We have greater maturity with, let's say, more empathy and responsiveness in conversations, which makes handling these customer requests much more self-service and spares advisors from having to process all these requests. Once these simple requests are handled, we will assign the more complex requests to the advisor. Here's how we'll do it. We'll implement what's called smart routing through an NB-NBA orchestrator, which will identify the most complex or high potential requests and forward them to the advisor via the AAU. This dedicated and highly capable advisor will be provided with a comprehensive suite of various advanced and intuitive tools, carefully designed and meticulously developed. These powerful resources will empower them, enabling them to effectively accomplish three distinct and crucial objectives with precision and efficiency. First, to be able to centralize all the information within the tools to work on recommendations so that the advisor can be more relevant. And thirdly, to automate tasks. By giving the advisor this visibility to optimize and reduce processing time, we'll be able to further enhance personalization afterwards. This personalization that we're aiming for will allow us to provide much more impactful recommendations with offers that are much better tailored, which in turn will make the client feel better advised. And depending on their level of engagement, we'll be able to try to find offers for them in a logic of so-called P-cells crop sets. Another very interesting point that this will bring is that we'll be able to generate insights. These insights, in fact, throughout the entire customer journey that we've studied and thus enhanced from end to end thanks to AI and IAGen, we'll try to understand them more precisely through AI in order to optimize customer satisfaction. So that's great. We have plenty of opportunities with AI and IAGen, but we also need to take a few risks into account. So the first risk could be a bit of the disappointing effect that we can experience with bots. Bots, if they're poorly configured or have complex processes, are difficult to use and can lead to a degraded customer experience. The second important risk is that we may end up in a situation where the customer no longer interacts with a human, which means losing the human relationship. And this can sometimes be complicated from the customer's perspective and needs to be addressed. We also have data that is used in our various models, and with this data, we need to pay close attention to everything related to security and the compliance of the data being used. Today, we have requirements to apply from a GDPR perspective, and they are sometimes complex. I would still say, to conclude, that all these AI-related technologies are evolving very quickly, and so we need to be very careful. As these technologies evolve, it will require people's time and, above all, constant updates to the technology and our understanding of it in order to address our topics and thus be more effective in the relationships we have with our clients. I quite agree with you. So to conclude on what you said, there is a real issue of upskilling
for employees. I'd like to follow up on a point that's quite interesting in relation to what you said, which is the opportunity to do upselling and cross-selling thanks to customer relationship channel. There is still a much broader and more significant issue when it comes to marketing, specifically regarding the comprehensive optimization and therefore the meticulous planning of our marketing budgets. And then, in a subsequent second phase, the crucial aspect of actionability and practical implementation. So, as you were saying, how do we manage to better target our customers? In this crucial and extensive planning phase, what's truly important to consistently keep in mind and thoroughly understand is that major telecom operators typically spend quite significant and substantial budgets across their various and diverse marketing channels, which are often numerous and complex. There is indeed a major challenge in effectively figuring out precisely how to optimally allocate and strategically optimize our marketing spend across all of our various and distinct different channels, all the while still diligently maintaining a truly substantial and impressive ROI. So that's the first question. And then there's the second question, which is, once we've done that, how are we going to activate our segments and our customers across these different channels? So, regarding the very first and most important point, there are now incredibly useful tools available, what we commonly call in marketing and business jargon, marketing mix modeling, which allow us to precisely identify from a comprehensive budgetary perspective exactly how we can effectively optimize the strategic allocation of our valuable spending across our various and distinct different channels. In fact, what these sophisticated tools essentially do is accurately identify the precise level of saturation on one particular channel compared to another, thereby providing crucial insights. And so they help determine which channels are being overinvested in versus those that are underinvested. So that's the first thing. Secondly, this can be done not only at the budget level, but also at the campaign level. That is, how do I allocate my spending on a campaign in the best possible way? And so here as well, there are tools, what we call incrementality tests, that really allow us to identify within a campaign which sales were actually generated by the specific channel in question. So this will really help. It will assist marketing officers in better planning their budget expenditures. So once we've done that, there's a second question, as I mentioned earlier, which is how do we take action? And here, Armel, if you could tell us who it is.
It is, exactly. So in relation to everything you have just comprehensively said, there's another crucial point to always remember. Precision marketing has truly revolutionized the entire use of valuable data to become much more customer-centric and focused. How was this implemented? It was implemented through the use of segmentation models, which allow for a more detailed analysis of customer behavior and the development of strategies tailored to the segments we've created. The arrival of generative AI has also made it possible to accelerate personalization and broader recommendations by taking into account a comprehensive view of customer needs. There are two types of personalization that I think we need to take into account. The first is personalization in how we address the customer. When we want to reach out to the customer, we have to choose a channel, we have to choose an offer or a message. To be able to do this, we use a recommendation system, as I mentioned earlier, specifically these N-Bomba scoring engines that allow us to score our clients to determine their suitability for certain offers and channels. Once we've set up this recommendation system, which is self-learning, automated, and multi-channel, we can then adopt an omni-channel approach. This approach allows us, based on a client's suitability for an offer and a channel, as well as their level of engagement, to engage them in one way or another. The second interesting aspect of personalization to discuss is the one related to content. Today, thanks to AI, we can build personalized campaigns, ultra-personalized even, because we can target down to the individual client level, all within a logic of optimizing click-through and conversion rates. These two approaches therefore make it possible to maximize ROI.
I agree with you, Armel. It's true that from what we've seen in our work with telecom operators, when we are able to combine targeting strategies with content personalization, we achieve significant gains on the order of 5 to 10% in conversion rates, which is quite substantial for telecom operators. Now, we're going to talk about building long-lasting and sustainable assets over time that will enable operators to achieve gains through data and artificial intelligence. So the first thing that comes to mind, Armel, is the whole ethical aspect, especially the so-called ethical issues, for example, through IHT. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Exactly. So, first of all, the IAGT specifically emphasizes comprehensive requirements for explainability, transparency, and the effective management of potential social risks as they are applied to advanced AI models. So, telecom operators are truly somewhat pioneering entities on these important social issues, as they are genuinely and deeply focused on their corporate social responsibility. On the other hand, IAGT will highlight a much more regulated framework that could have stronger consequences in terms of penalties, so it needs to be taken into account very quickly. How do we take it into account? We take it into account by establishing a normative framework, dedicated governance, and by raising awareness and training teams on all these concepts and rules so they can be implemented quickly. When I say quickly, what you need to keep in mind is that today, when we deal with AI use cases, there is discomfort. And for these use cases, it's essential that from the framing and development phase, technical documentation, for example, is put in place with precise rules and recorded traceable decisions to avoid having to catch up later if these use cases are developed too quickly. One last important point, I think, is that as technologies evolve rapidly, the regulatory framework will also change. So it's crucial to keep in mind that these technological developments will have regulatory impacts and that we need to take them into account as they arise to avoid ending up in a kind of retroactive muddle with issues related to the use of sensitive data and so on. Thank you, Camille, for joining us to talk about telecoms, especially in the areas of field operations and networks. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Camille Brissaud, Senior Manager at Artefact. I've worked several years on data and AI transformation challenges in telecom, particularly in field operations and network management.
So we talked with Carmel about customer relations topics. What we can say, though, is that to improve customer relations, one of the main ways available is to enhance the quality of field operations and, in particular, the quality of service on the network. So, Camille, could you tell us more about how data and artificial intelligence can help with this?
Exactly. So we can see that a significant amount of work has already been done to massively roll out fiber to customers. However, there is still a lot of frustration among some customers because certain interventions can take far too long. We see this, for example, when technicians come to perform an intervention and can't find the customer's address, or there are network quality issues, so they don't know where the customer's address is. The network equipment they need to work on is sometimes in very critical condition. You may have seen this yourself. And so, inevitably, the technician can't make the connection. And if he does, sometimes he ends up disconnecting the neighbor who was already connected. So out in the field, there are a lot of issues. And actually, we also see problems even further upstream. From the moment the order is placed, things could be optimized. We see that appointments are being scheduled, even though work is planned just a few days later. So everything has to be started over from scratch. So all these issues present major challenges for telecom companies in tackling the following problems. How can the technician successfully connect the client and, as a result, avoid costly repeat interventions? How can we create a seamless experience for the customer, starting right from the order placement? How can we avoid high back-office costs when there are issues like repeat interventions, failures, or after-sales service management? And finally, alongside all of this, how can we effectively translate field information into the various information systems? For this, what's great is that there are quite a few opportunities now available thanks to AI, data, and now agent-based technologies. At Artefact, we've worked extensively on use cases involving AI during the intervention phase. How can we equip technicians with tools that help them improve their efficiency? We're specifically working on a digital twin project so that the technician can, in real time, or even before their intervention, visualize the different pieces of equipment, allowing them to assess their condition and anticipate a plan B in case they're unable to connect to the network equipment. A few years ago, we worked on an image recognition tool so that the technician could, this time in real time, validate the quality of their work. And with that, we observed excellent results, with the success rate increasing from 30% to 90%. And thanks to agent-based technology in recent times, we've managed to reinvent back-office work by equipping these various players with assistants, with agents, which make it easier to process information that is now scattered across many information systems and to resolve intervention failures, which, as we've seen, still occur today much more quickly. What's great about agent-based technology is that it can be extended to many other professions, especially network teams who supervise telecom equipment and network quality.
Let me go back to what you were saying earlier, Camille. For telecom operators, especially when it comes to interventions and networks, there is a major issue around data sovereignty.
Exactly. So as we've seen, I was talking to you about a use case that could help supervisors in particular to maintain network infrastructures in good condition. This is highly sensitive data. Telecom companies are therefore asking themselves a lot of questions about whether or not they should migrate this data to sovereign clouds. As we can see, we're in a complex geopolitical context and regulations are becoming stricter. So inevitably, migrating this data to clouds operated by foreign companies is problematic. Nevertheless, there are business requirements, there are needs, so a solution must be found. So now there's a whole discussion around the technical stack that needs to take place. How do I decide to use my data? Do I do it on an on-premise cloud? That could be a solution. Should I wait for sovereign clouds to implement solutions that allow me to have, as a result, a secure infrastructure? For now, these are topics we're working on quite intensively with our clients.
And it's true that this also brings us to another topic, which is everything related to data governance.
Exactly.
Data governance for telecom operators is really the crux of the matter. Why is that? Because, as I mentioned in the introduction, operators are fortunate to be data rich, which means they've accumulated a huge amount of data. These are data that have been siloed according to different business units. And as a result, we often end up with data replicas that have been set up on different satellites, which makes all acceleration-related topics much more complicated. Why is that? Because we end up with duplicate data, and the stakeholders who want to use the data for their use cases don't know which data is the right one to use. Is this one of good quality? Is it well documented? So there is a real issue here if operators want to speed up work on this data governance project. An issue that is even more prevalent when it comes to migration topics with public cloud clients. Why is that? Because costs can increase significantly when you store data on a public cloud. So what we recommend and what we see working in the market is what's called the data mesh. So what does data mesh involve? It involves a true decentralization of data. That means we're going to change our approach. Whereas initially, data producers and data owners were mostly on the IT side, now we're going to shift the balance and say that business units should gradually reclaim ownership of their data. So what needs to be implemented and what we recommend is to set up data products. So data products are quality data that is governed with clear ownership. And so what we believe is fundamental is that there needs to be dual governance, both IT and business, over data management. This is where we see that a very important element is putting business units back at the center of things.
Exactly. And so, in the telecom sector, especially when it comes to field operations and network interventions, we're dealing with very hands-on operational roles, people who aren't necessarily used to working with AI and data solutions in their daily routines. So one of the last key steps to implement is really all about familiarizing business teams with these new concepts. No matter how much time we spend developing the best possible use cases, if in the end the business teams don't use them, the value will be zero. So there's a major challenge in change management to help these teams get familiar with the new tools, to help them understand what they are, how they can work with them, and also what the risks are. There are some great success rates, but there will always be times when the business teams disagree. So how do we educate them to have a critical mindset towards AI responses and also help them change the way they work? Many of the tasks they do today will disappear or be replaced. So for that, they need to be supported before, during, and after the entire data transformation within the company.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us. As you've seen, there are a lot of challenges in the telecom sector when it comes to data and artificial intelligence. And we look forward to sharing more with you on these topics. See you very soon. Subtitles ST Prime 501.